The Last of Us on PC was a horrible mess with multiple crashes, terrible textures, characters all of a sudden are wet, and terrible stuttering that makes the game unplayable. Even after a few patches, there are some things that have been fixed, but most of the Steam reviews are still negative. This is also not the first PlayStation game with a bad PC port, because Horizon Zero Dawn, Days Gone, Uncharted, and even Returnal did not perform well when they launched. So why are PC ports that bad? Well, the simple answer is that PCs and consoles are just built differently. Console has only one type of RAM, that is between 10 to 16 GB in size. But in PC you can have RAMs from 16 GB to 128 GB. But not only that, the GPUs that we use also have VRAM, which can be 8 GB or more. So technically PCs should be running these games much better because they have more RAMs. That's not the case. When the games are running in consoles, some of the data is stored in RAM, whereas the rest of the data is streamed instead. But when that game comes to PC with a port, the CPU will have to juggle between the dedicated RAM and the GPU VRAM, deciding on who should get these data. On top of that, CPU is also responsible for decompressing all visual data, which means the load on the CPU is much higher, and that hampers the performance. Consoles, on the other hand, are designed so smartly that they have a dedicated system in place that will handle decompression. So the CPU has a lot less load as compared to PC, and that's why it can handle the games much better. The next biggest problem is shader. Now, shader is basically a program that determines the amount of color, lightness and darkness that a scene needs when it's rendering. So in games like The Last of Us or many other games that we have seen in the past, there is a shader compilation happening in the main menu. But we don't see that happening in consoles, and the reason why is because console always have one GPU. It is same throughout all the consoles. All the PS5s have the same GPU, all the Xboxes have the same GPU. So the developers already know the GPU, so they can pre-compile the shaders into a file, which when the game has been played in the console gets loaded, and that's why you never see shader compilation thing happening. But in PCs, you can't do that because there are so many GPUs. And so that's why players have to wait till the shaders are compiled. And that's what you see in the main menu, or sometimes some of the games like Marvel Spider-Man does it also while you're playing the game. So in general, consoles are different from PCs, and the developers already know the hardware inside of the console, so it's much easier for them to develop a game for that console. But when it's ported to PC, things get a little bit complicated. But that should not also serve as an excuse, because games like The Last of Us took 40+ minutes just to compile shaders. People don't have that much of time to just wait around until the shaders are compiled. The developers also go with "we will fix this later" approach that is hampering their own games. It's reducing the sales and the interest of people who want to play this game. This thing is also not only limited to PlayStation exclusive games. You have seen games like Callisto Protocol, Gotham Knights, or even Wild Hearts, which was such a good game in consoles, but in PC, it is terrible that nobody wants to play the game. But the mentality of "we will fix it later" also comes because of this particular reason, and that is publishers might not be willing to give enough time to the developers to fix what the problem is with the PC port. It looks like that's what happened with The Last of Us, because it was supposed to be released close to the ending of The Last of Us TV show, but then they delayed it till the end of March. But they didn't want to delay it any further, and that's why they released the game, and now we all know the rest. But on the other side, there are other games, PlayStation exclusive titles themselves, such as God of War, Marvel Spider-Man and Miles Morales. All games came out at a much better state. All these games were done so well, why can't the other games be handled in the same way and release a PC port in a much better state? So what are the things that these PC ports definitely need? Well, the first thing is they need to find a better infrastructure on shader compilation. Compilation of shaders is very important, but for someone to wait 40+ minutes for the shaders to be compiled to play Last of Us is just unacceptable. It's too long, and they need to figure out a way so that that amount of time can be reduced. Secondly, the graphics option should be consuming less VRAM if possible. Last of Us is a great example because it was going beyond 12 GB of VRAM, even though the game is highly towards the graphics side, but it still should not use that much of VRAM. So it should optimize in such a way that the usage of VRAM is not that high. And the graphics option in general should be a little bit better, as it should describe how each setting should impact their system. And lastly, publishers should give developers enough time to fix the PC port, because if they don't do that and release in such a state like The Last of Us, your sales will drop, the people's interest will be going down, and just like right now, you can see that Last of Us is not being played by many as compared to Resident Evil 4 Remake. Which just sucks because everybody knows that The Last of Us is so good. But sometimes some games are just made in such a way that disappoints everybody. Check this video out to know why Gotham Knights did the exact same.